Is LA feeling like it's on the ropes right now in regards to basketball? It's got to feel a little uneasy. Both the Clippers, Lakers down, 2-3, I guess, in their series, if you're going to call it that way from their perspective. But it can't feel good to be an LA basketball fan at this point, can it?
It is. I got to tell you something, man. The Clippers, I really firmly believe that the Clippers are convinced that they can't win. I swear.
Tyronn Lue
man.
wasn't. They were down, 0-2?
And
he said he wasn't worried about it.
No, but I mean, they get into situations, and it's like last night's game. They've got the ball. There's an opportunity. Great defense. They get a couple of stops. They hit some threes, and they've got an opportunity to get a basket in transition and take a lead. And it looks like a couple of guys at the rec league. It's weird. It's almost like they're expecting something bad to happen. Kawhi throws up a brick late. He gets a weird look from Rajon Rondo. I mean, last time we saw Rajon Rondo wasn't in the bubble. It was actually him and his girlfriend at the time getting into an altercation with another woman at a parking complex in L.A. I don't know how that whole finished up, but the whole thing, it's literally like the circus. Like you're waiting for somebody to come out on a unicycle and juggle some bowling pins. They got a big rubber nose. There's a clown car that pulls up. It's like every time they get into a situation, and I don't know if it's just that the organization is cursed. I don't know what it is, but you win 2 games in Dallas. You get all the momentum back. Luka's dealing with some sort of a nerve issue on his neck or whatever it is that he's dealing with. So you've got health on your side. You've got that advantage. And then you get home, and it's like you erase a 10-point lead. You get it down to 1 with under a minute left, and you just figure out a way to fumble it away. I don't.
It seems like they just crap down their leg in those moments.
That's all it is.
That's what it is. The odd thing about this series is road teams have won every game.
Yes,
which is bizarre. And I know we talked about this either yesterday or the day before, and I can't remember who said. I don't know if it was Danny G or who was talking about the lack of home field or home court advantage in LA because of Staples Center. But the reality is in Dallas, they actually do have a home court advantage, and it didn't matter for the first couple of games. So it's bizarre, but, I mean, look, now they find themselves in a position where they've got to fight and claw and scratch and find a way of winning this series just to advance. But more so than that, I mean, and I'm not just saying this because of the shot that Kawhi took and how bad it looked, but the best player in the series has been Luka Doncic.
Not even close.
And if you asked me, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was, when the Raptors won, were we not anointing Kawhi Leonard as like, hey, maybe it's LeBron passing the torch to Kawhi Leonard, or I mean, depending on how you viewed Kevin Durant, like there was that conversation at one point. I don't see that. I mean, I don't see it at all in any fashion or form right now.
Oh, I think Luka's a better player. I swear to God, I watched the two of them. I think Luka's a better player. And it's almost like, and Shaq made the point after the game where he said, I thought, what happened to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard being great perimeter defenders? Like that's always been the thing. Paul George, great two-way player. Kawhi Leonard, great two-way player. Nobody has an answer for Luka in this series. When he's healthy, he gets whatever shot he wants, whenever he wants. Like, nobody's got an answer for him. And, I mean, he really is the linchpin of that team, meaning, like, everything goes through him. Every single thing goes through Luka Doncic. So if he's got to throw up 90 shots a game like he seemingly did last night to get whatever point total he ended up with, that's what he's going to do, and they've got no answers for him. And it seems like we've seen the best of Kawhi Leonard. And I'm not trying to shovel dirt on the grave, but it just feels like you see some things with Kawhi Leonard that it's like, I wonder if maybe a couple of years ago he could have made that switch or he could have been able to make that play on defense. And I just don't see it now that he's got the ability to be a dominant player on offense and a dominant player on defense for an entire series, because the most dominant player in this series has been Luka.
No doubt about it. Offensively speaking, yeah.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Defense is optional for Luka. He's got no interest. Please. He's good.
Well, you can't spend energy on both ends.
No, listen, he's fine. Yeah, he's got priorities there.
He's a scorer. But
yes.
I do think there is a crowd or a party that's got to be very concerned with starting tonight. And that has to be the NBA, and it has to be TNT.
No.
Because if they lose both the Lakers and Clippers, LA media market is out. The New York Knicks are out. Now, outside of the Nets, but like you and I both know, there's some New York fans who might be Nets fans and all that. But the reality is the Knicks are different in the way I think fans there cheer for them, hope that they could win. But you take out New York, you're taking out LA. Golden State's already out of it. And we already saw that was the highest rated game in how long? The playing game between Golden State and the LA Lakers.
Yeah.
And if they're out, I can tell you right now, that is a TV network's worst nightmare moving forward in this series. Not having those big, huge brands, big media markets still in on this thing. So, yes, you've got the stars. If Brooklyn advances, look, you've got the stars on that particular team. And it'd probably be good to kind of mix it up, have someone else hoisting up the trophy at the end of the NBA Finals. But the reality is for ratings, and not that ratings have been good for the NBA for a while anyway, but this is getting closer to kind of like almost a nightmarish scenario of what this could look like.
I mean, all right, so let's have some fun here. Do we have a Brady Quinn game show music, please? I mean, this is obviously very appropriate. You hear the last name Quinn, you go, all right, so what are we going to get, some Russian song and dance? Oh, no, here we go. We are back with Brady Quinn theme music.
That's
here.
Right.
All right.
Can we just keep this theme music? I mean, it is – I'm very partial to it.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of it. And now I would like to ask you, let's discuss – the worst-case scenario NBA Finals for the NBA. All right, if there was a worst-case scenario NBA Finals for the NBA, like who are we thinking here? Because I'm gonna go Atlanta and Utah. All right, so if we could get Atlanta and Utah, just that whole thing play out with Atlanta, who's always had people have been very critical about that fan base. Trae Young's been a lot of fun, but if we could get Utah out of the West, I think that would put a cherry on top on one of the worst runs of ratings luck that the NBA has come across in the last, I want to say, decade plus. So I'm going to go Atlanta-Utah as being my matchup. Would you be all in on an Atlanta-Utah matchup? Who knows? Maybe they'll even send us
Karl
to those
Malone
games.
coming back? I mean, are we going to have Karl Malone?
Yeah, yes, and Kevin
and
Willis and Dominique Wilkins.
Now, maybe if that crew was coming through.
Yeah, give me a little John Concac if we could. If we could make that happen, I would be all in on that if that's what's going to happen.
I honestly, I mean, Utah, Portland, that's obviously another smaller market. Even though they're down in the series to Denver, that would be the other team in the West that you'd be looking at thinking, okay, I don't know how much of a following they'd have. And then it sounds terrible to say, look, you've got a superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo, but Milwaukee's not a big media market. All right, like that's a smaller media market than Atlanta, and I think it would probably rate a little bit better just because of Giannis. But no, you're right. That's probably a doomsday scenario for the NBA. And I'm telling you, keep an eye out. The officiating was a little inconsistent last night.
Yeah,
it seemed like that at times the players couldn't tell what was a foul, what wasn't, especially down the stretch. I would not be shocked. And I know there's been a lot made of the Lakers-Suns series, but if the officiating wasn't god-awful tonight, I'm just telling you right now.
Oh, well listen, and here's the part that bothers me. When you dare throw out a claim like that, people go, oh, God, here we go with the conspiracy theories. No, sorry. This is what you get when you have a league who had an official who was gambling on his own games. I'm sorry. You deal with the repercussions. All right? Don't fool around on me.
This isn't a conspiracy theory, though. This is just from watching the games and seeing how inconsistent they've been, depending on which game, depending on at what point in time in the game. Yeah, so, like that's more of my gripe with it. I'm just saying you're going to see it again tonight.
You had an official who was betting on his own games and told you how this stuff works. Like, he's told you how this stuff works. So, yes, it is fair to ask these questions. These are fair questions to ask. If I find out my wife's fooling around on me, and then she comes home 2 weeks later and smells like cologne again, am I not allowed to ask a couple of questions? I'd like to ask a couple of questions. So if she comes in and smells like a bottle of Brut, all right, I feel like I've got the right to ask some questions.
Yeah, you better smell those undies, man. You better smell those undies.
Yeah. Listen, and all of that is fair. But if you have an official who pulled that. I think it's understandable that we would see some of the stuff go the other way, and I just feel like there could be some maneuvering here to try and get us a couple of Game 7s, especially considering you had a lot of series wrap up pretty quick, which I'm a fan of, because I think I don't need to roll around in crap for 10 minutes in order to know that I've got crap on me. All I have to do is step on it and go, okay, time to hose the shoes off. I didn't need to see that crap for any longer than we got it. We wrapped up a bunch of series. Now we move on. Now they try and squeeze us for a couple of 7-game runs. I'm into it. Let's go.
Of course, especially for the TV networks. You know that's how they make the most money. Game 7s always rate the best. That's usually, again, where you're maximizing your advertising revenue throughout the playoffs. It makes sense. Let me ask you this, not to kind of transition. Of any professional sport, which one could the umpires, refs, officials manipulate the most?
Oh, NBA. NBA,
yeah, but then you've got like baseball with the umpire in the strike zone, which is, kind of everything.
Yeah, but I feel like we have at least somewhat of an understanding of the strike zone. Now the rules that has been bent a little bit this year, because some of the calls this year have been. You know what I actually think in baseball this year? I think umpires have now just come to terms with the fact that there's going to be electronic umpires moving forward, and on their way out they've got 2 middle fingers up and are like, all right,
it's going to be R2-D2 behind home plate. Eventually calling balls and strikes. That's essentially what it's going to be.
I mean, whoever R2-D2 is, I'm not really into the video games and stuff like that. I don't know what that is. Like, what is that? What R2-D2? What is that? Is that like
from Star Wars? I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but I'm pretty sure I know most people know who R2-D2 is.
Yeah, so like growing up, I wasn't really like a cartoons or Space Wars or whatever you call it guy. I was a football guy. Wars. I watched football. I was a big Notre Dame guy. I don't know about you, but I was a big Notre Dame fan growing up.
Well, one for a fact. I know that's not true, but maybe a Bears fan. Yeah, of course.
Rocket Ismail, man. I remember Rocket Ismail as a kid. Loved Rocket Ismail.
That guy could play right now if he wanted to.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Maybe I'll agree, though. I mean, officiating, obviously, in the NBA can send you directly to the foul line to get points, right? Like a bad foul call, a change of possession. There's a bunch of ways. So, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I think an umpire would be right up there, though, with the ability to manipulate the strike zone on every pitch for every batter for 9 innings. That's pretty significant.
And I don't think the NFL can get away with it as much, partly because there are so many eyeballs on the NFL. Like, I really don't think they can. I really don't think an official can make an agreement.
I would make this case that there's actually stuff that goes on every play that players get away with, but they just can't see it all because there's so many players.
Yeah.
So I would actually make the case that their impact in general is less in comparison with other professional sports just because there's so many moving parts, all these things going on. I mean, hell, we've implemented replay and stuff, and they still can't get some of the calls right. So even if they wanted to, something could go up for a review, and it would ruin their plan of trying to manipulate the game. So I would actually argue that it's just harder to be able to have that sort of impact as an official in the NFL. Now, you can call pass interference at a key point in the game, and they can get the distance. It's not just like a 1st and 15 like in college, and that can definitely give you a better chance. But if a kicker's kicking a field goal, he's got to make it. Like they've got to figure out a way of executing in the end. So I don't know. I think maybe depending on the circumstance, but in football they can get away with a lot more. Yeah. So it just makes it harder for that official to have that sort of impact.